Have you ever felt utterly drained by the people around you, as if all you wanted was to close the door and retreat into the quiet sanctuary of your own space? If you have, let me assure you, you're not alone. At 65 years young, I've come to a liberating realization. I've officially chosen to live a people-free life, and it feels incredible. For years, I questioned myself. Was there something wrong with me? Was I antisocial or just grumpy? But over time, I've learned that stepping back isn't about avoiding others. It's about prioritizing self-improvement, inner peace, and clarity. As a wise elder, I've realized that the constant buzz of social obligations can sometimes distract us from what truly matters. Society tells us that community connection is essential, but for some of us, the real connection begins with ourselves. In my journey toward personal growth, I've found that solitude can bring incredible benefits for mental health and mindfulness. It allows me to recharge and reflect without the noise of the world around me. For those of us aged 65 to 80 years old, it's a gift to embrace this stage of life with grace and authenticity. Choosing to step away doesn't mean I dislike people. It means I've learned to value my time and energy, focusing on senior wellness and the things that truly bring me joy, whether it's savoring the quiet moments or engaging in happiness and solitude. I've come to understand that life is about quality, not quantity. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt the same way? If so, perhaps it's time to pause, reflect, and explore what truly makes you happy. After all, finding peace in solitude is one of the greatest lessons we can learn as we embrace aging gracefully. Looking back on youth, when I reflect on my younger years, I often see a version of myself that tried desperately to fit in. Like many, I felt the unspoken rule that belonging to a crowd meant success, connection, and happiness. But as I've grown older, I've realized that those expectations didn't align with who I truly am. In my 20s, I felt compelled to join every party, every event, and every conversation. I thought that being part of the group would somehow validate my worth. I pushed myself into countless social gatherings, forcing smiles, making small talk, and pretending to enjoy the noise and the chaos. Yet deep inside, I yearned for something quieter, something simpler. In the past few years, I have begun to understand. At the time, I couldn't name it, but now I recognize it as a desire for mindfulness, a craving for moments of stillness to reflect and recharge. By my 30s, I started noticing that the social buzz I once tolerated began to feel heavier. The endless need for connection started to drain me. Still, I felt guilty for wanting to step away. Society had conditioned me to believe that withdrawing from people meant losing community connection, and that solitude equated to loneliness. But nothing could be further from the truth. Solitude is where I found clarity and growth, two essential pillars of self-improvement. In my 40s, the disconnect became more apparent. I began to avoid events that no longer resonated with me. Concerts and large gatherings, once staples of my calendar, became sources of anxiety. The superficial chatter and meaningless exchanges seemed empty. It was then that I began to understand the importance of prioritizing quality over quantity, not just in relationships, but in life itself. The shift in my 50s was even more profound. Social media emerged as a dominant force, painting a picture of hyper-connected lives that often felt inauthentic. It amplified the pressure to be visible and to constantly prove your worth through likes, comments, and shares. I found myself questioning this virtual reality, longing instead for genuine interactions that honored mental health and authenticity. Now at 65, I embrace a more intentional approach to life. Reflecting on those younger years, I see the lessons I learned about personal growth and the importance of stepping away from societal expectations. I no longer feel the need to attend every event or maintain an expansive network of acquaintances. Instead, I focus on cultivating relationships that are meaningful and rooted in mutual respect. This journey has taught me that aging gracefully is not about clinging to the past or conforming to outdated norms. It's about redefining happiness on your terms. Whether that means finding joy and happiness in solitude, appreciating the quiet moments, or simply allowing yourself the freedom to say no. Looking back, I see a younger version of myself who wanted to fit in, but didn't yet realize that true fulfillment comes from embracing who you are, not who you think the world wants you to be. And now, I carry these lessons forward, living with intention, clarity, and peace, redefining social expectations. As I moved through my 40s and 50s, I began to question the societal norms surrounding socializing and connection. It felt as though the world around me was designed with one clear message: be outgoing, be accessible, be part of everything. But I started to realize that this expectation didn't reflect my reality or my needs. The notion of being constantly on felt exhausting. Social obligations seemed to multiply as life progressed. From professional networking to community events, the pressure to always show up and engage weighed heavily on me. For years, I participated out of a sense of duty. I would attend gatherings and make polite small talk, yet leave feeling drained and disconnected. This wasn't a community. This wasn't a connection. It was noise. Around this time, I began to understand the importance of setting boundaries. The idea of stepping back from what didn't serve me felt radical, even selfish, but I knew it was necessary. For the sake of my mental health, I began to prioritize what truly mattered. Instead of attending every social event, I chose to invest in fewer, deeper relationships, ones that nurtured my spirit and aligned with my values. This shift wasn't without its challenges. Many people didn't understand. Some questioned why I was no longer as available or why I seemed more distant. But over time, I learned that I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Prioritizing my own well-being wasn't a rejection of others. It was an act of self-respect. In today's world, where social anxiety is on the rise and technology dominates human interaction, it's easy to feel like real connection has been lost. Social media gives the illusion of closeness, but often it's superficial and performative. I found myself yearning for something more genuine. This realization became a catalyst for change in how I approached relationships and community. I discovered that solitude doesn't mean isolation. Happiness in solitude became a cornerstone of my personal growth. By stepping away from the constant need to be surrounded by others, I found time to focus on myself, reading, reflecting, and embracing quiet moments of peace. These periods of stillness allowed me to reconnect with who I was beyond the roles and expectations placed upon me. This journey toward redefining connection and community also taught me about resilience. Aging brings with it a unique set of challenges, but it also brings wisdom. By embracing solitude and valuing the relationships that truly matter, I found a new sense of balance. It's not about shutting people out. It's about curating a life that aligns with your values and priorities. At 65, I've come to appreciate the clarity that comes with stepping back. This stage of life isn't about fitting into societal molds. It's about creating space for yourself. By doing so, you allow genuine connections to flourish while letting go of the unnecessary noise. The impact of technology on connection. As I entered my 50s, technology began to reshape the way we connect with one another. Social media platforms emerged as the go-to spaces for communication, promising to bring us closer together. But for me, it often felt like the opposite was true. Instead of fostering meaningful relationships, these platforms seemed to amplify superficiality, competition, and a relentless need for validation. Scrolling through endless feeds, I saw a world that was curated, polished, and performative. People shared highlights of their lives, vacations, achievements, and perfectly staged moments, while the deeper, authentic parts of human connection seemed to fade into the background. I couldn't help but feel like we were losing something essential, the ability to truly see and understand one another. Life. For someone like me who values authenticity and mental health, the noise of social media quickly became overwhelming. It was exhausting to keep up with the constant updates and notifications, and it often felt like I was being pulled into a world that wasn't real. I started to feel the weight of social anxiety, not because of in-person interactions, but because of the pressure to maintain an online presence. I made the decision to step back. I began to limit my time on social platforms, choosing instead to focus on in-person connections and the moments of mindfulness that brought me peace. This shift wasn't easy at first, but it allowed me to rediscover what truly matters: meaningful conversations, quiet moments of reflection, and the joy of simply being present. Technology has its benefits, of course. It allows us to stay in touch with loved ones across distances. But for me, the most valuable connections happen in the quiet spaces, where screens are off and we can be fully present with ourselves and the people who matter most. The gift of solitude. In a world that constantly glorifies busyness and social engagement, solitude is often misunderstood. Many people equate being alone with being lonely, as if time spent in one's own company is something to be avoided or feared. But as I've grown older, I've come to see solitude not as a void, but as a gift, a sacred space where I can reconnect with myself, nurture my inner peace, and discover the things that truly matter. When I was younger, the idea of solitude seemed foreign, even intimidating. Society conditioned me to believe that success was tied to being surrounded by people, constantly engaging and proving my worth through external validation. But the more I tried to keep up with these expectations, the more I felt disconnected from myself. It was as though I was living someone else's life, chasing someone else's idea of fulfillment. Solitude changed that for me. The first time I consciously chose to spend time alone, it felt strange. I didn't know what to do without the distractions of others or the noise of the world. But as I sat with myself, I began to notice things I hadn't before: the rhythm of my breathing, the stillness of the air, and the thoughts and emotions that had been buried beneath the surface. These moments of mindfulness became a form of healing, a way to tune out the chaos and focus on what truly brought me peace. As I embraced solitude more fully, I discovered its profound benefits for mental health and self-improvement. Time alone allowed me to reflect on my past, learn from my experiences, and set new intentions for the future. I found clarity in my thoughts and strength in my ability to navigate life's challenges. It was during these quiet moments that I began to understand the value of personal growth, not as a destination, but as an ongoing journey. Solitude also deepened my relationships. By spending time alone, I learned to appreciate the people in my life more deeply. I no longer felt the need to fill every silence with conversation or every day with plans. Instead, I focused on cultivating connections that were genuine and reciprocal. These relationships weren't about obligation or convenience. They were about mutual respect and shared values. The beauty of solitude is that it allows you to prioritize what truly matters. For me, that meant engaging in activities that nourished my soul, reading books that inspired me, walking in nature, and practicing mindfulness. These moments weren't just a form of self-care, they were a way to honor the life I wanted to live. Of course, choosing solitude isn't always easy. There were times when I felt judged for stepping back from social obligations, or misunderstood by those who didn't share my perspective. But as I grew more confident in my choices, I realized that the opinions of others didn't define my worth. What mattered was how I felt about myself and the life I was creating. At 65, solitude has become a cornerstone of my daily routine. It's where I find balance, clarity, and peace. It's also where I find the freedom to explore new ideas embrace creativity, and nurture my well-being. For anyone navigating the complexities of aging gracefully, solitude can be a powerful tool, a space to reflect on the past, celebrate the present, and prepare for the future with intention and authenticity. Solitude isn't about shutting people out. It's about creating space for yourself. It's about learning to value your own company and finding joy in the simplicity of being. It's a way to reclaim your time, energy, and focus, and to live a life that aligns with your values and priorities. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the demands of the world, I encourage you to try embracing solitude. Start small. A quiet morning with your thoughts, an afternoon walk without distractions, or an evening spent doing something you love. With time, you may find that solitude isn't something to fear, but a gift to cherish. Protecting peace, the art of saying no. One of the greatest lessons I've learned over the years is the importance of protecting my peace. In a world full of noise, obligations, and constant demands on our time, learning to say no has been a transformative act of self-care and empowerment. When I was younger, I often found myself saying yes to everything: parties, meetings, favors, and endless social engagements. At the time, I thought it was the polite and expected thing to do, but each yes came at a cost. I would feel drained, overwhelmed, and out of sync with my own needs. It took me years to realize that every time I said yes to something that didn't align with my values, I was effectively saying no to myself. Learning to set boundaries was not easy. Society often equates busyness with worthiness, and stepping back can feel like breaking an unspoken rule. But as I grew older, I understood that saying no isn't about rejection. It's about prioritization. It's about choosing the commitments, relationships, and activities that align with who you are and what truly matters to you. Protecting my peace has allowed me to focus on what brings me joy and fulfillment. Whether it's a quiet morning walk, a reflective moment with a favorite book, or simply sitting in stillness. These small acts of mindfulness have become essential to my mental health and well-being. By saying no to things that don't serve me, I've created space for the things that do. At 65, I see the power of embracing solitude and simplicity. Protecting my peace is not about avoiding people. It's about valuing my energy, my time, and my journey. And I've learned that sometimes the best way to say yes to life is to confidently say no to the noise. Shared experiences of aging. Aging is often portrayed as an isolating process, yet it's one of the most universal experiences we share. As I've moved through my 60s, I've come to appreciate the unique bond that forms between people who are navigating the same stage of life. There's a quiet understanding, a mutual respect, and an unspoken connection that transcends words. One of the most profound realizations I've had is that aging isn't just about change, it's about growth. It's about shifting priorities, reevaluating what matters, and letting go of what no longer serves us. These shared experiences create a sense of solidarity. Whether it's adjusting to a slower pace, embracing solitude, or learning to prioritize self-improvement, there's comfort in knowing that you're not alone in this journey. Conversations with peers have shown me that many of us experience similar emotions: gratitude for the lessons we've learned, a desire for simplicity, and a newfound clarity about what truly brings us joy. We talk about the importance of mental health, the courage it takes to set boundaries, and the value of meaningful relationships. These discussions remind me that the challenges and joys of aging are universal, and they're meant to be shared. In a world that often glorifies youth, it can be easy to feel overlooked or undervalued as we age. But I've found that this stage of life offers something even more precious: wisdom. With age comes a deeper understanding of ourselves and the freedom to live authentically. For anyone feeling isolated or uncertain, remember that aging is not a solitary journey. It's an opportunity to connect with others who share your experiences and to draw strength from the collective wisdom of those who've walked a similar path. Together, we can embrace the beauty of aging with grace, resilience, and a sense of community. Embracing this chapter of life. As I've grown older, I've come to see this stage of life as a beautiful chapter, as one that's not defined by loss or limitation, but by freedom, authenticity, and self-discovery. Aging has given me the clarity to focus on what truly matters, shedding the superficial expectations that once felt so heavy. Living with intention has become my guiding principle. Whether it's finding joy in quiet moments of mindfulness, engaging in activities that spark creativity, or simply appreciating the beauty of a slow, peaceful day, this chapter is about living fully and authentically. I've learned to say no to what drains me and yes to what nourishes my spirit. It's not about doing more, it's about being present for the things that matter. F. Vladimir Putin. This chapter is a reminder that life isn't a race, it's a journey. And as I embrace this stage with grace, I find myself more connected to peace, wisdom, and a profound sense of gratitude.